Good evening everybody, it's your pal Martin Metalhead here, hope you're going well. It's been 2 weeks since I left Asmara Eritrea, my 119th nation and my 23rd nation in Africa in total. I just realised how short my trip to Eritrea was, but it had been a country I've been wanting to visit to for yonks. I first heard of Eritrea when I was in Australia, working in a soup kitchen in Parramatta. I met this one guy helping out in the soup kitchen. I asked where he's from. He said, Eritrea. I never heard of the country before. He said, oh, we're on the Red Sea. We're across the Red Sea from Saudi Arabia, next to Sudan, Djibouti, and Ethiopia. So as my mind grew and I started to learn more about history, I looked into the history of Eritrea. It was originally, for a couple hundred years, colonized by the Ottomans. Like Pizzeria was part of the Ottoman Empire, and then all of a sudden the Italians took it over from the 19th century until World War II, where they were defeated by the British Empire and of course the French Empire as well. And so everyone thought, oh, let's give Eritrea back to Italy like they did with Somaliland, but they didn't. The British kept Eritrea for themselves and then they gave it back to Ethiopia, in which this caused a 30-year war of independence from 1961 to 1981, where Eritrea became victorious. Even though, they had different suppliers. Like, there was a time when they were, backed by the communists, but then when Ethiopia became communist, then they were backed by the First World. I met a man in Eritrea whose father was actually even trained in Israel during the War of Independence. Now, Eritrea isn't really going to be a country not on your bucket list, but it should be. It's quite an interesting country to visit in Africa. For once, as it was colonized by the Italians, there's still a lot of Italian architecture around Asmara and Pizzeria and all over the place. There are still plenty of Italian food and drinks to be served all around Eritrea, and a lot of the elderly locals, they can still speak Italian. But the sad thing was, I didn't get to meet anybody of Italian descent. As I went to the cemetery in Asmara to visit where all the Italians have been buried, the most recent grave was 2015. So when you come to think about it, there should be some people in Eritrea who have stayed there of Italian blood. Now, to get into Eritrea, it used to be a really hard visa process. You just have to go to an Eritrean embassy in your country, apply for a visa, go through a whole bunch of BS. But there are people in the country that will help you get a visa on arrival, no matter if you live in a country with an Eritrean embassy or not. So in my case, we bring in Mr. Teskete, the owner of Asmara Grande, a tourist company in Eritrea. He was able to give me a landing permission for $75 US, and so all I had to do was fly into Eritrea and pay $70 on arrival. It was a long process to enter the country because I didn't have a prearranged visa, so I had to wait to get my visa issued. And funny enough, they made a lot of screw-ups. They put the wrong birth date on my visa, even when I'd written my actual birth date on the forms. And, my birthday was even on the visa on arrival piece of paper. So, it's their fault. That would just be being dum-dums. But that tends to happen. But there was no major issues with that. But it did take 3 whole hours of waiting at Asmara Airport. And then there's also, blackouts that happen. Power outages, so just bring patience because you will be at the airport for a long time just waiting to get that visa. Okay, now the important thing is you have to bring in hard currency, not just to pay for your visa on arrival and to pay for your tour guide and all, but also you need to change your money into Nakfa. I know this is a little bit ripped, but I've got some Eritrean currency right here. It is You won't get screwed over in the currency exchange shops because it's a set rate of $1 to 15 nakva. So I got 3,000 nakva from $200, and then about 1,010 nakva from about 60 euros. So I paid my guide $75 at arrival at his office, but unfortunately I couldn't really afford to take other trips around the country because you need a permit to leave Asmara and travel to Maseru on the Red Sea. But I just couldn't really. I thought it was a bit unfair for like many years. Locals and tourists could just get buses to Maseru even with a permit. But then it was like, no. You tourists can no longer take the buses. You have to take a drive with you. So Teske drove this Russian guy who was with me and myself, and so he drove him around Asmara and took him to Maseru. I decided not to go to Maseru, and I decided not to really go outside of Asmara because of my limited budget. I stayed at the Africa Pension Hotel, which is right next to the Italian Embassy. I paid roughly $23 a night, or 350 nakva. But there's nothing really special because there was no toilet paper, there is no Wi-Fi whatsoever, and also it seemed a bit run down, like from its glory days of when the Italians were there. But after all, it is just a room, it is a place to sleep, but you get what you pay for. Now, with danger and annoyance, you won't really get any scams or overcharging, all this crap. But I must warn you that children will be after your money. They will pester you from time to time. They'll go up to you and signalize, like, I need money, I need food to eat. Don't give them anything. I was a bit generous when I gave chips that I didn't want to a child sitting on the street, or I gave 2 donuts to a child on the street. I just thought, I don't really want this food. I don't want this food to go to waste. Look, I don't know if you're starving or not. Here's... But you best not to give money or food to begging kids in any part of Africa, because they've been brainwashed and stereotyped that us, white people, Europeans, Americans, Australians, Westerners, whatever, that we're rich. And we're not. We just want to travel the world, to go visit different nations, experience different cultures, and we should not be bothered by stupid children who like being racist and yelling out stupid things like China to any Western person they see, or white person, or they basically just want money out of you. And that's a different story to like corruption you experience in Africa. That's just basically people all around Africa can be really crappy to you and just pest you for money. Truth is, just don't give. Just basically say, Swedish, I don't carry cash. Even if you maybe feel like backlash and they will keep pestering you for money, just don't. I had this really bad incident at this restaurant. Okay, I went to this restaurant, Ghibabo, whatever it was. Basically, it was an Italian restaurant that had a lot of Italian stuff and artifacts. I knew about this place because Gareth Graveson from GG Worldwide had been there. He made a video of himself playing the accordion. Now, there was a photograph of GG, another tourist, and a local lady. So I got to this guy working there, I just showed him a photograph, and I'm like, do you know this woman? Is this woman working here? And so what he did was he took my phone, and he basically just started, walking around the place, and I thought, what the fuck is this guy doing with my phone? I've got personal information on this. I got naked photographs of chicks. I don't want fucking strangers going through my phone, even though I had to show my phone to get into Israel. Okay, it's a different story. But he just couldn't explain to me, like, yes or no, is this woman still working here? Or where I could be able to find her. I just wanted to meet this woman, just to basically say, you met Gigi, you're amazing. So I had a really crap service at this place because I ordered French fries to start off with, and then I wanted a local dish of shikto, which was an injera and like a spicy, wouldn't really say it's a curry, but it's basically just like lentils and chickpeas served injera, which injera is you use your pancake as the spoon. They didn't give me my French fries. My French fries came out in a freaking foil bag. It was like a tray. Yeah, it came in a tray. So on the next day, that hotel restaurant manager was there and he wanted the same photograph. I thought, well, look, can't I just airdrop you the photograph, or can't you take a photograph of what my phone is? And he just couldn't. So at the end of the day, he gave my phone back, and then he's like, oh, you're staying at Africa Pension. I thought, why the fuck does this guy know where I'm staying? I never ever inform anybody where I'm staying, no matter where in the world I go, because if you do that, you're going to get horrible things. I mean, I'm telling you this. You're going to get robbed, you're going to get mugged, you're going to get, like, assaulted, because you're basically inviting idiots into your place who could steal things from you when you're not there. So, the $1 million question is, if somebody asks where you're staying, you basically say, yeah, I'm staying with a friend of mine. I'm staying on couch surfing. Or just basically say, it's none of your business. But this one guy was so rude. He basically said to me, oh, what room number are you in? And I'm like, I just made up a number. I made 66. Yeah, room number 66, close to 66. But he had to be a complete dog to me and basically say, oh, what time do you go to sleep? So I thought, wait, this guy would get to come into my hotel and fucking bother me. So I basically told him to go away. The next day, I stop him in the street, but he just recognizes me. And I'm asking him, like, why are you asking me personal questions? Because I'm a foreigner here. And I stumped him. I basically said to him, are you gay? Because I felt like maybe he wants to get with me. I mean, I'm a heterosexual, but LGBT people, they're quite repressed all over Africa, okay? I couldn't care if this guy was gay or straight. I just didn't want him to be anywhere near me. And he just couldn't answer me, so I just gave him the 2 middle fingers and said, fuck off, in front of, like, locals. I wouldn't have done such a thing, but he was just so annoying and pestering me. And it's really irritating when locals want to be like this to a tourist. I know I am different, but we're all the same. But you shouldn't be bothering me for crap, because I'm not going to give you anything, and I don't care about getting with local women. I do not travel the world to sleep with other women. I would rather have my own sexcapades in Britain and Australia because, well, I'm just not attracted to foreign women. I'm only attracted to my own race. Even though I've been with a Jewish lady or I've been with 2 women from the African continent who are white, I just don't see myself that I would ever marry an African woman or marry a woman who's not white or of my race. But point over, this guy was just being a complete idiot. I explored the city of Asmara on my own, and the horrible thing was I wanted to go visit the war cemetery, which is 4 kilometers. So as I'm walking out of town, I'm doing this. I'm like, is the taxi driver going to come by and give me a lift? And no taxi driver wanted to pick me up. So I thought, forget it, I'm used to walking. I walked 4 kilometers out of Asmara, and I got to the Commonwealth War Graves Cemetery, paid my respects to all the war dead who died in the Battle of Asmara in World War II, and it was really touching to see the grave of an Australian nurse buried in Asmara. It was like getting close to home. Sadly, my trip was ruined on my last day because I got food poisoning from a shawarma, all because it was served warm. So I felt completely crap for the next day. I just wanted the whole day to pass over. I just went to bed. I was so sick. I had thrown up. I had to take extra medications because of my medical conditions. I basically had to eat. I got myself out of bed to buy bread and bananas, and I just wanted the whole day of Saturday to just end. I just wanted to get to an airport and leave. Let's say that I had fun times in Asmara by eating Italian food, going to a bowling alley, going to a synagogue on Friday for Friday afternoon prayers, which was lovely. That was a great experience. I was really touched with all my time spent in Eritrea. But sadly, I lost my phone in Birmingham a week later if I came back. So there won't be any Eritrean vlogs, although there may be some videos. out there on my Instagram of me in this tank cemetery or having a coffee ceremony. I just regret that I didn't back up my files properly, what I should have, and sadly I couldn't even bring this camera in on my trip because I had no space in my bag. I had to transport a whole bunch of shirts, socks, and books for my guide in Asmara from my sister in Liverpool, which was a good thing I did. But I got nothing in return, which is okay, which is fair enough, but I would have preferred just to have gone to Eritrea without doing a favor for somebody else. I do not travel the world just to give transport stuff for people in foreign countries. I'm not a courier. I don't want to do this type of stuff because that's really dodgy. If somebody says to you, oh, can you please take this parcel back to your home country? Don't! It's dodgy shit. It's probably going to be full of drugs like that. So you should just learn from all the other people who have been busted for being a drug mule in the past. But that's not really related to Africa. That could happen anywhere in the world. Would I go back to Asmara? If I had a little bit more money, I would go to Pizzeria or not, but I just think it's really unfair that a country basically says, okay, foreign tourists can come to Asmara, but they can't get outside without a permit. Okay, fair enough. I can pay for a permit. I can pay half of one of these for a permit to get to Pizzeria. But don't make me be a dick and have to take a drive-in with that. If locals are paying $2-4 to go from Asmara to Pizzeria, I'll pay the same price. I'm not going to pay $200 just to have a driver with me because I don't really have that money to spend, and depending on the country, sometimes I like to see the place on my own, depending on how safe it is. But yeah, Eritrea is quite a safe country to visit. No wars going on whatsoever in the current time. We are in 2025. But you will be restricted to Asmara unless you pay for permits, pay for drivers. You will not be able to go outside of the capital. That's just how it is. But anyway, I was quite glad I went to Eritrea, even though I could have gone to, let's just say, Bahamas, or I could have gone to Barbados. I just had something on pulling my heartstrings that I had to get to Eritrea this year because I made a promise. Alright, I bought this bracelet last year off a lady from Ghana, and I swore not to take it off until I got to Asmara. And I did. I took it off in Asmara. And what I plan to do with this bracelet is I'm going to frame it and put one of my photos in and remind myself about how I was committed to going to Eritrea by keeping this bracelet on with me. I think I should buy a bracelet from Sierra Leone and keep wearing that until I get to Sierra Leone, which will happen hopefully sometime next year because Sierra Leone is now flying from London to Freetown. So I had a good time in Eritrea despite getting food poisoning and getting harassed by this fucking restaurant manager. I recommend that you plan a trip to Eritrea thanks to the flying NAS because you can get there quite cheaply from Jeddah, roughly £200 return. Just make sure you get yourself a Saudi Arabia multi-entry visa because you won't really be transiting in Saudi Arabia. I should tell you this, you should spend at least 2 days in Saudi Arabia waiting for your flight because Jeddah is an amazing city. Anyway, this is Martin the Metalhead. I'm over and out.